He burst from the tree line like a nightmare made of muscle and instinct. Moon, the largest grizzly in the valley, wounded, starving, and furious. And he was running straight at an 81-year-old woman standing alone in the snow. Rangers yelled for her to move. Luke begged her to run. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath, but Evelyn didn't take a single step. She simply lifted her cane, the same way she once did when Moon was a dying cub in her arms. And then it happened. Something so impossible, so breathtaking that even the hunters dropped their rifles in disbelief. If you're still with us, you're part of a remarkable community here at Whispering Hearts, where real stories of extraordinary animal connections come to life. Every subscriber helps us share more heart-touching moments that reveal the power of compassion across species. Don't forget to hit subscribe, because the journey ahead is one you'll feel long after the story ends. The storm had rolled in faster than anyone expected, swallowing the pine ridges of Yellowstone in a curtain of white. Wind tore through the treetops with a low, guttural howl, flinging shards of snow in every direction. It was the kind of cold that punished exposed skin instantly, the kind of morning that made even experienced rangers whisper prayers under their breath. Yet, in the middle of that raging emptiness, an 81-year-old woman stood alone. Evelyn Carter braced her weight on a worn wooden cane, the same cane she had traveled with for years, scarred and smoothed by time. She could feel the cold through her coat, biting deep into bones far older than the weather around her. But she didn't move. She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Because she recognized the shadow stepping out of the tree line. A massive grizzly bear pushed through the swirling snow, its fur matted with frost and streaked with something darker, blood. The animal's breath came out in heavy bursts, steaming violently in the air. Snow clung to its face, to the ridge of its back, to the silver, crescent-shaped patch of fur on its neck. That patch, the unmistakable mark of a healed burn, caught the thin dawn light like a memory made visible. The moment his eyes found her, the world seemed to freeze even harder. Behind Evelyn, half hidden in the storm, Chief Ranger Maria Ortiz shouted over the wind, "Ma'am, step back, now!" She might as well have shouted into the ocean. Evelyn didn't hear her, or rather, she heard, but it no longer mattered, not compared to the creature staring back at her. More voices rose behind Maria's. Fresh panic, fresh fear. Luke Carter, Evelyn's grandson, stumbled through knee-deep snow, his breath ragged, his face pale under the weight of what he was seeing. "Grandma, don't move. Please, God, don't move." Luke tried to rush forward, but two rangers grabbed him by the arms, dragging him back before he could make the kind of mistake people never came back from. His camera swung wildly around his neck, the lens fogging under the freezing air as he yelled her name. Another ranger, a young recruit with trembling hands, raised his rifle. "Chief, he's charging! He's charging! Do we take the shot?" Maria's eyes narrowed against the storm. She knew the rules. She knew the protocol. She knew that if a bear charged a human, especially an elderly woman, the right decision was to fire. Yet something in the scene held her back. Evelyn wasn't trembling, wasn't screaming, wasn't frozen in terror. She was waiting. The grizzly let out a low rumble that vibrated through the clearing, then lowered its head and lunged. It didn't walk. It didn't test. It didn't hesitate. It ran. Snow exploded in a wave behind it as enormous paws hammered across the frozen earth. Its muscles rolled like coiled thunder beneath its fur. Its growl deepened, a sound that cracked through the clearing and rattled in every rib cage. Luke screamed. Maria swore. The rangers braced to fire. But not Evelyn. Her grip tightened on the cane. Her shoulders straightened. She drew in a single steady breath, the kind she'd learned to take in burning forests decades earlier. And she whispered one quiet word into the storm. "Moon." The bear thundered forward, now only yards away, close enough for Evelyn to see the moisture around its nostrils, close enough to feel the vibration of each step travel up through her boots and into her bones. It was a creature capable of breaking her in half with a single swipe, a predator in every sense. Still, she didn't move. She lifted the cane halfway, not to defend herself, not to swing, but with an eerie familiarity, as though she had lifted that same cane toward that same creature once before. "Chief, I need permission, now!" the young ranger screamed, finger tightening on the trigger. Maria didn't answer. She couldn't. Her breath was locked in her throat. The bear barreled forward. 10 yards. 6. 4. Luke's knees buckled. "Grandma!" And in that moment, just before impact, Evelyn closed her eyes. Not in fear, but in recognition. A short silence followed. A silence thick enough to bend the world in half. The kind of silence that happens right before something breaks, or something impossible takes shape. The roar of the wind softened for a heartbeat, as though the storm itself was waiting to see which it would be. Tragedy or miracle. The bear's final leap closed the last distance. Time fractured. Evelyn's boots sank half an inch deeper into the snow. A single snowflake caught on the rim of her glasses. Luke's camera dropped from numb fingers. Maria's hand hovered above the ranger's rifle, about to make the decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The creature's shadow swallowed the old woman whole. 3 months earlier, long before the storm, long before the charge that would stop every beating heart in that freezing clearing, Evelyn Carter sat alone in the dim glow of her small room at Evergreen Pines Assisted Living in Seattle. It was nearly midnight, the halls silent except for the occasional squeak of a nurse's shoes on linoleum. Most residents had long since surrendered to sleep or to medication-assisted rest, but sleep rarely came easily for Evelyn anymore. The tiny television mounted to the wall flickered with cold winter colors, whites, blues, grays, as a nature documentary followed a wolf pack through Yellowstone. She kept the volume low out of courtesy, hands folded neatly on a knitted blanket draped over her lap. Outside the window, rain tapped softly against the glass, typical Seattle impatience in gentle rhythm. She wasn't watching the wolves. Not really. She watched to keep the silence away. The silence that grew bigger every year since her husband passed. The silence that crept into a room once filled with children and noise and purpose. She watched because the alternative was remembering too much, or feeling too much, or admitting that she was running out of time. Her thumb rubbed slowly over a small burn scar on her wrist, barely noticeable unless someone knew what to look for. She didn't realize she was doing it until a news scene flashed across the screen. Early morning snow in Yellowstone, glistening under weak sun. And then, a bear. Not just any bear. A massive grizzly, lumbering with age and power, scarred from battles with life and winter. The camera zoomed in on its neck as it turned. Evelyn froze. There it was, the patch of fur, silvered like moonlight, curved into the faint shape of a crescent. The same place she remembered bandaging with trembling hands 2 decades ago. The same burn mark that shouldn't have healed so clean unless someone had cared for it for days. The same impossible, unmistakable sign. Her heartbeat stumbled. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. She leaned forward, breath catching painfully in her chest. "Moon," she whispered. Her voice cracked like she hadn't used that name in years. Because she hadn't. Not out loud, anyway. The documentary narrator kept speaking, something about tracking patterns, migration, aging males, but she didn't hear a word of it. All she saw was the little cub lying half dead in her lap 24 years ago, the smell of smoke in his fur, the tremble of his breaths, the stubborn tilt of his head even then, and the way he had pressed his burned neck against her palm, trusting her before he had a reason to. "If you live, I'll come find you again someday," she had whispered to him the night before they released him. She had never told anyone that part. And now, he was alive. Older, heavier, wild, but alive. And maybe, just maybe, he was waiting. Her throat tightened with emotions she had held back for years. Loneliness, guilt, a longing, all wrapped up with an old promise she never expected to keep. "I need to go," she whispered. Her hand trembled as she reached for the phone. It took 3 tries to dial. Luke answered with a groggy grunt. "Grandma, it's, what, almost midnight." "Luke, sweetheart, I need your help." Instant alertness. "Are you okay? Did something happen?" "I need to go to Wyoming," she said plainly, as though asking for milk from the store. "Yellowstone, as soon as possible." A pause. A long, heavy one. "Grandma," Luke finally said, voice gentle the way people speak when they're trying not to upset someone fragile. "You can't just, why would you even want?" "Because I saw him." "Who?" "A grizzly, but not just any grizzly. My bear." Luke rubbed his eyes on the other end of the line. She could picture it. Hair a mess, face tired, that familiar crease between his eyebrows. "Your bear." "The cub from 99, the one from the fire." She swallowed. "Moon." Silence again, but this time not the gentle kind. "Grandma, you remember that was Alaska, right? And you were part of an emergency wildlife unit then. That was decades ago. Bears don't just survive that long, and look, even if he did, how could you recognize him on TV?" "Because he had the mark," she insisted, voice trembling. "The crescent-shaped burn, the same one I treated myself." Her breath shook. "Luke, I know what I saw." "Grandma, I think maybe—" "No." Her tone sharpened, enough to silence him. "Don't you dare speak to me like the doctors do." That landed harder than she intended, and she heard Luke exhale slowly. "Okay," he said softly. "I'm listening." "I made a promise to him," Evelyn said, her voice breaking. "A real one, and I'm running out of time to keep it." Luke didn't know what to say. Not immediately. She could almost hear him thinking about her age, her failing lungs, the medication she often skipped, the doctor warning the family that her heart won't tolerate much strain. But she also knew Luke, knew how much loss he hid behind jokes and camera equipment, knew the divorce had gutted him, knew the job he lost last month still bruised him. Maybe that's why, after a long breath, he said, "I'll be there in the morning." Luke arrived with bed hair, wrinkled clothes, and the same weary eyes she remembered from years earlier. But when he saw the folder she laid out, the old photographs of a tiny burned cub nestled in her jacket, the medical chart from her days as an emergency responder, the burn scar on her own hand, his skepticism wavered. "You really cared for him," Luke whispered. "He saved me," Evelyn said. She didn't elaborate, but Luke knew enough about grief to understand. And maybe something in him cracked open too. Something that had been closed since he'd signed divorce papers and packed his life into moving boxes. "Okay," he said. "If this is the one thing you want before anything happens, I'll take you." Emotion welled up. Behind Evelyn's eyes, she pressed her lips together to steady her voice. "Thank you, Luke." He cleared his throat. "But you know we can't just waltz into Yellowstone. There are rules, permits, safety protocols, rangers, and you're not exactly in hiking condition." "I don't need to hike," she said simply. "I just need to get close enough to see him." Luke hesitated, but only for a moment before nodding. "I'll book flights." When he stood and headed for the door, she called after him. "Luke?" "Yeah, Grandma." "Don't tell your mother." He smiled despite himself. "Wasn't planning on it." That night, after Luke left, Evelyn sat with her hands resting on those old photographs. She traced the outline of the cub's face, the tiny burned patch, the half-healed paws, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. A reason to breathe deeper, to push through the ache in her joints, to fight time just a little longer. Outside her window, the Seattle rain softened to a drizzle. Streetlights glowed like distant campfires. She leaned back in her chair, letting memory replace the quiet. Moon's cub-sized heartbeat against her chest, his tiny claws hooking into her jacket, the dangerous, impossible bond that had changed her life. She whispered into the lonely room, "Just wait for me a little longer, darling. I'm coming." 3 months earlier, long before the storm, long before the charge that would stop every beating heart in that freezing clearing, Evelyn Carter sat alone in the dim glow of her small room at Evergreen Pines Assisted Living in Seattle. It was nearly midnight, the halls silent except for the occasional squeak of a nurse's shoes on linoleum. Most residents had long since surrendered to sleep or to medication-assisted rest, but sleep rarely came easily for Evelyn anymore. The tiny television mounted to the wall flickered with cold winter colors, whites, blues, grays, as a nature documentary followed a wolf pack through Yellowstone. She kept the volume low out of courtesy, hands folded neatly on a knitted blanket draped over her lap. Outside the window, rain tapped softly against the glass, typical Seattle impatience in gentle rhythm. She wasn't watching the wolves. Not really. She watched to keep the silence away, the silence that grew bigger every year since her husband passed, the silence that crept into a room once filled with children and noise and purpose. She watched because the alternative was remembering too much, or feeling too much, or admitting that she was running out of time. Her thumb rubbed slowly over a small burn scar on her wrist, barely noticeable unless someone knew what to look for. She didn't realize she was doing it until a new scene flashed across the screen, early morning snow in Yellowstone, glistening under weak sun. And then, a bear. Not just any bear, a massive grizzly, lumbering with age and power, scarred from battles with life and winter. The camera zoomed in on its neck as it turned. Evelyn froze. There it was. The patch of fur, silvered like moonlight, curved into the faint shape of a crescent. The same place she remembered bandaging with trembling hands 2 decades ago. The same burn mark that shouldn't have healed so clean unless someone had cared for it for days. The same impossible, unmistakable sign. Her heartbeat stumbled. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. She leaned forward, breath catching painfully in her chest. "Moon," she whispered. Her voice cracked like she hadn't used that name in years, because she hadn't. Not out loud, anyway. The documentary narrator kept speaking, something about tracking patterns, migration, aging males, but she didn't hear a word of it. All she saw was the little cub lying half dead in her lap 24 years ago. The smell of smoke in his fur, the tremble of his breaths, the stubborn tilt of his head even then, and the way he had pressed his burned neck against her palm, trusting her before he had a reason to. "If you live, I'll come find you again someday," she had whispered to him the night before they released him. She had never told anyone that part. And now, he was alive. Older, heavier, wild, but alive. And maybe, just maybe, he was waiting. Her throat tightened with emotion she had held back for years. Loneliness, guilt, longing, all wrapped up with an old promise she never expected to keep. "I need to go," she whispered. Her hand trembled as she reached for the phone. It took 3 tries to dial. Luke answered with a groggy grunt. "Grandma, it's, what, almost midnight?" "Luke, sweetheart, I need your help." Instant alertness. "Are you okay? Did something happen?" "I need to go to Wyoming," she said plainly, as though asking for milk from the store. "Yellowstone, as soon as possible." A pause. A long, heavy one. "Grandma," Luke finally said, voice gentle the way people speak when they're trying not to upset someone fragile. "You can't just... Why would you even want..." "Because I saw him." "Who?" "A grizzly. But not just any grizzly. My bear. Luke rubbed his eyes on the other end of the line. She could picture it. Hair a mess, face tired, that familiar crease between his eyebrows. Your bear. The cub from 99, the one from the fire. She swallowed. Moon. Silence again. But this time, not the gentle kind. Grandma, you remember that was Alaska, right? And you were part of an emergency wildlife unit then. That was decades ago. Bears don't just survive that long, and look, even if he did, how could you recognize him on TV? Because he had the mark, she insisted, voice trembling. The crescent-shaped burn, the same one I treated myself. Her breath shook. Luke, I know what I saw. Grandma, I think maybe... No! Her tone sharpened, enough to silence him. Don't you dare speak to me like the doctors do. That landed harder than she intended, and she heard Luke exhale slowly. Okay, he said softly. I'm listening. I made a promise to him, Evelyn said, her voice breaking. A real one. And I'm running out of time to keep it. Luke didn't know what to say. Not immediately. She could almost hear him thinking about her age, her failing lungs, the medication she often skipped, the doctor warning the family that her heart won't tolerate much strain. But she also knew Luke, knew how much loss he hid behind jokes and camera equipment, knew the divorce had gutted him, knew the job he lost last month still bruised him. Maybe that's why, after a long breath, he said, I'll be there in the morning. Luke arrived with bed hair, wrinkled clothes, and the same weary eyes she remembered from years earlier. But when he saw the folder she laid out, the old photographs of a tiny burned cub nestled in her jacket, the medical chart from her days as an emergency responder, the burn scar on her own hand, his skepticism wavered. You really cared for him, Luke whispered. He saved me, Evelyn said. She didn't elaborate, but Luke knew enough about grief to understand. And maybe something in him cracked open, too. Something that had been closed since he'd signed divorce papers and packed his life into moving boxes. Okay, he said. If this is the one thing you want before anything happens, I'll take you. Emotion welled up behind Evelyn's eyes. She pressed her lips together to steady her voice. Thank you, Luke. He cleared his throat. But you know we can't just waltz into Yellowstone. There are rules, permits, safety protocols, rangers, and you're not exactly in hiking condition. I don't need to hike, she said simply. I just need to get close enough to see him. Luke hesitated, but only for a moment before nodding. I'll book flights. When he stood and headed for the door, she called after him. Luke? Yeah, Grandma. Don't tell your mother. He smiled despite himself. Wasn't planning on it. That night, after Luke left, Evelyn sat with her hands resting on those old photographs. She traced the outline of the cub's face, the tiny burned patch, the half-healed paws, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. A reason to breathe deeper, to push through the ache in her joints, to fight time just a little longer. Outside her window, the Seattle rain softened to a drizzle. Streetlights glowed like distant campfires. She leaned back in her chair, letting memory replace the quiet. Moon's cub-sized heartbeat against her chest. His tiny claws hooking into her jacket. The dangerous, impossible bond that had changed her life. She whispered into the lonely room, "Just wait for me a little longer, darling. I'm coming." In the days before their flight, Luke kept pressing Evelyn for details. Not because he doubted her anymore, but because he wanted to understand what kind of promise could survive nearly a quarter of a century. What kind of bond could pull an elderly woman across the country away from safety, toward the very heart of wilderness? He didn't have to wait long to find out. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind where Seattle felt more like an old, dripping coat than a city. Luke had wheeled Evelyn's suitcase into her room and was sorting through her medication packets, making sure everything fit into the travel pouch. Evelyn sat on the edge of her bed, the TV on mute, her eyes distant in the way people get when stepping backward through time. "You want to know what happened?" she finally said. Luke looked up. "Yeah, I do." Evelyn inhaled slowly. "Then sit, sweetheart. This isn't a story you stand through." He eased into the chair beside her, camera resting forgotten against his chest. She folded her hands, staring down at the faint burn scar along her wrist, as if the memory was still warm. "It was the summer of '99, she began. "Alaska was burning." Luke nodded. He remembered the news footage from childhood. Wide orange skies, forests glowing like furnaces. "I joined a wildfire emergency unit as a paramedic for wildlife rescue support," she continued. "Your grandfather had passed the year before, and I couldn't breathe inside that house anymore. You can only water empty plants and straighten framed photos so many times before you start feeling like a ghost." She paused, letting the truth settle between them. Luke reached out, resting a warm hand over hers. She didn't look up, but she squeezed gently. "We were deep near the Kenai region when we found him," she said. "A tiny cub, maybe 3 or 4 months old, barely bigger than a house cat. Smoke had burned through his fur. A fallen tree pinned him by the leg. The fire line was less than 100 yards away." She closed her eyes, seeing the scene as clearly as if it were happening now. "The others said to leave him. One of the firefighters pulled me back and shouted, 'Evelyn, he's done for. We don't have time.' And maybe he was right, but then..." The cub lifted his head. Her voice softened, and he looked right at me. Luke leaned forward, his breath caught somewhere in his throat. "There was nothing wild in that moment," she whispered. "No threat, no fear, just pain and a plea." She opened her eyes. I crawled under the smoke and lifted the branch myself. Burned half my sleeve off doing it. The cub tried to bite it first. Instinct, you know. But he didn't have the strength. He collapsed against my chest. She touched her wrist again where the scar lay. His neck was burned, that same crescent patch I saw on TV. I wrapped him in my jacket and ran. "You ran? With a cub? Through a fire?" Luke said, incredulous. "I was a hell of a lot faster back then," she said with a small smile. "The others yelled at me the whole way, but they cleared a path. We got him to the emergency tent, and I remember thinking, if he dies, I'll carry this one more weight the rest of my life." "But he didn't," Luke murmured. "No, but it was close." She described those first days. Moon wheezing so faintly she could barely tell if he was alive, the infection spreading, the burns refusing to scab. The wildlife vet had said very gently that they should let the cub pass. They didn't have the resources. Supplies were low, and bears didn't attach to people the way some animals did. "But he did," Evelyn said. "Oh, did he ever?" She smiled. Not the soft, nostalgic kind, but something deeper, brighter, a smile that came from an old place in her heart. "I sat with him every night, sometimes talking, sometimes singing nonsense just so he wouldn't feel alone. When he got cold, I held him to my chest. When he cried, I stroked his back. When he whimpered, I whispered, 'Hang on, little moon, hang on.' And he listened. He fought." Luke's voice was quiet when he asked, "Why'd you name him Moon?" "That patch on his neck, sweetheart. In the dark it glowed pale like a crescent moon. I'd touch it to soothe him, and he'd press into my hand every time." She continued. "By the 6th week, he was climbing all over me. I had to carry a stick to keep him from chewing up my boots." Luke laughed softly. "He trusted me," she said, more serious now. "And trust from a wild animal, that kind of thing changes you, reminds you you're still needed." The room fell quiet. Rain ticked softly against the window. When they said he was strong enough to return to the reserve, her voice wavered. I didn't want to let go, but you don't keep wild things, not if you love them. She swallowed. They took him at dawn. He was scared, backed away from the handlers. Then he ran toward me, fast like he'd done in that clearing today. Luke's breath hitched. The image connected too neatly, too painfully. But he didn't hurt me, she said. He just pressed his head to my knee, and I knelt down and told him, someday when you're free and wild, I'll find you again. Luke rubbed the back of his neck. You meant it. I did. I absolutely did. And then life got in the way, and my heart, well, you know the rest. But when I saw him on that screen, looking tired and older and still fighting, I knew I'd failed him. And I won't leave this world with that failure. Her eyes lifted, fierce despite the soft tremble in her hands. I have one promise left in me, Luke. Just one. Help me keep it. He'd heard enough. He stood, pacing once, twice, torn between fear and something that looked almost like hope. Grandma, you know how insane this is, right? Oh, I never said it wasn't, she replied dryly. He let out a shaky breath, then nodded slowly. Then, we're doing it, he said. We're actually doing this. Thank you, Luke. He swallowed. I'll be honest. I don't know if I'm doing it for you or because I need something to believe in too. Evelyn's expression softened. Both reasons are good ones. He helped her adjust her coat and began gathering the documents she'd shown him. But when he reached the door, he hesitated. Grandma, if we find him, what are you hoping for? Really? She smiled. Tired, determined, achingly gentle. I don't need him to remember me, she said. I just need to remember who I was when I loved him. Before Luke could answer, thunder rumbled over Seattle, shaking the window. A warning, a beginning, a call. Let's pack, she said. The morning Evelyn left Evergreen Pines felt strangely quiet, as though the building itself knew something unusual was happening. Most departures were planned, families arriving with flowers, nurses with clipboards, paperwork reviewed and signed in advance. This was not that kind of departure. Luke arrived just after sunrise with 2 suitcases, a travel oxygen kit, and an expression that wavered between determination and disbelief. He had barely slept. He kept checking flight confirmations, rental car details, weather alerts, anything to reassure himself that he still had control over the madness he had agreed to. Evelyn, on the other hand, looked almost serene. She wore her warmest coat, her sturdy boots, and a knitted scarf she'd made years ago. Her cane tapped lightly as she walked, the rhythm steady despite the nerves fluttering inside her. When they reached the front desk, the head nurse, a heavy-set woman named Carol, lowered her reading glasses and frowned. Mrs. Carter, she said, this form says you're checking yourself out against medical advice. That's correct, Evelyn replied. You understand the risks? The doctor specifically noted, I understand perfectly. I'm old, not irresponsible. Carol exhaled sharply, then looked at Luke as if begging him to intervene. Young man, please talk some sense into her. Travel of this length could… Carol, Evelyn interrupted softly. I'm not asking for permission. I'm informing you. The nurse's expression softened at the quiet conviction in Evelyn's voice. Still, she glanced at the other residents gathered near the windows. Some stood, holding their walkers. Others pressed close to the glass, with curious, worried eyes. The one who stepped forward was Margaret, Evelyn's closest friend. Brittle as bird bone, but sharp-witted and loyal. Tears welled as she cupped Evelyn's cheek with a trembling hand. You come back to me, hear? Margaret whispered. And if you can't, at least see something beautiful for me. Evelyn nodded, unable to speak past the ache in her throat. Luke placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. We have to go, Grandma. Margaret squeezed her, fingers once more. You brave fool, she murmured with affection. Bring back a picture. And with that, Evelyn stepped through the main doors, out of the predictable life she'd been boxed into and into a world she'd once known intimately. A world of risk, motion, and purpose. The taxi ride to the airport was quiet at first. Traffic hummed, raindrops smeared the windows, and Seattle's skyline receded behind them as though letting go of something it had no right to keep. Luke finally broke the silence. "You sure you're up for this?" "No," she replied honestly. "But sometimes you don't wait to feel ready. You move because standing still would break you." He nodded as if the words were meant for both of them. At the airport, the TSA agent raised an eyebrow when he checked Evelyn's birth date. "Traveling pretty far today, ma'am." "Not far enough," she said. Luke grinned, despite himself. The first leg of their flight was smooth. Evelyn watched clouds drift beneath them with a quiet fascination, her fingers tapping restlessly on the armrest. Luke tried to rest, but worry gnawed at him. Twice he checked her medications. 3 times he asked if she needed water. "I'm not porcelain," she teased. "A little turbulence won't shatter me." She spoke too soon. Halfway into the second flight, the aircraft lurched violently. A warning chime sounded, followed by the captain's tense voice explaining they were entering an unexpected wind shear pattern. The cabin rattled. Passengers gasped. A drink cart nearly toppled. Evelyn exhaled slowly, gripping the armrest. Her lungs tightened, not from panic, but from the old scar tissue that sometimes seized in cold weather or high altitude. She tried to hide it, but Luke saw her chest hitch. "Grandma, hey, breathe with me." He placed a hand over hers. "In, out, you got this." A flight attendant hurried over, alarmed, but Evelyn held up a hand. "Seatbelt first, dear. I'm old, not dying." Luke shot her a look. "Don't joke." "I wasn't." But she smiled anyway, and the tension broke enough for Luke to breathe again. The turbulence passed. The plane steadied. And the moment they landed in Bozeman, Montana, Evelyn seemed to inhale like she hadn't drawn a full breath in years. Their rental car was a battered SUV that rattled at every sharp turn. The road to Yellowstone stretched long and empty, carved between frozen fields and distant mountains dusted white. Evelyn sat with her forehead resting lightly against the window. "I'd forgotten how big the sky is out here," she said. Luke glanced at her. "You miss it?" "Every day." As they drove, clouds rolled over the mountains like slow gray waves. By the time they reached the gateway town outside the park, the temperature had dropped sharply. A sign outside a small diner flashed storm watch in effect. Luke pulled into the lot to check the weather radar. Inside, the diner buzzed, with the chatter of travelers, truckers, and a few rugged locals. As they entered, a young woman at the counter straightened, recognition flickering across her face. "Wait, are you Luke Carter, the wildlife cameraman?" Luke blinked. Yeah, I guess." "I follow your channel," she said brightly. "Nina Brooks. I film wildlife travel stories. Mind if I grab a seat?" Evelyn gave Luke a look. "Let her." He shrugged. "Sure." Nina sat with contagious energy, her camera bag slung over her shoulder. "I heard you've been off-grid a while. You filming something new?" Luke hesitated. The truth sounded too strange to speak aloud, but Evelyn rested her hand over his. "It's a long story," Evelyn said. "One that hasn't ended yet." Nina leaned forward. "If it involves bears, storms, or people doing impossible things, I'm interested." Luke exhaled. "You have no idea." As they ate, Luke found himself telling Nina more than he meant to. About Moon, about the TV documentary, about Evelyn's promise. Nina listened with wide eyes, absorbing every word. "You're kidding," she said finally. "If that's real, if that bear is still alive, you're sitting on a story the world would lose its mind over." "We're not doing it for the world," Luke replied quietly. "Just for her." Nina softened. Then let me help you film it. No money, no contracts. Just let me witness it." Evelyn studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but no foolishness, and no getting too close to wildlife." Nina grinned. "Deal." By the time they reached the Yellowstone entrance, the storm had begun its slow crawl down the mountains, thickening the air with flakes that brushed against the windshield like whispers. Evelyn's heart hammered with something that wasn't quite fear. It felt closer to awakening. Luke parked at the ranger station. Chief Ranger Maria Ortiz stepped out, a tall woman with a stern jaw, sharp eyes, and a posture that suggested she knew danger by name. "You're the Carters," she said. "We got your request. I have questions." Her tone wasn't unkind, but it held the weight of protocol and too many close calls. Inside the station, Dr. Daniel Kim joined them, a wildlife biologist with tired eyes behind his glasses, flipping through files as Luke explained their purpose. When Evelyn showed them the old photograph of the cub, burned neck, crescent marking, Daniel's face paled. "I know this mark," he murmured. "One of our oldest males. B19. We call him the Ghostback." "Ghostback," Evelyn repeated. "He's elusive, smart, avoids humans. We've only caught him on camera traps 2 or 3 times in the past year." Maria crossed her arms. "And even if your story is true, Mrs. Carter, that bear is a fully wild grizzly. You don't get close to an animal like that. Not at your age, not with this weather coming." Evelyn met her gaze without flinching. "I'm not here to pet him. I'm here to see him, just once, before time catches me." Maria hesitated, but only for a second. Then a door burst open. A young ranger rushed in, breathless. "Chief, we found traps, steel traps, and blood, a lot of it." Daniel stiffened. "Where?" "North boundary, near Ghostback's territory." Maria swore softly, grabbing her coat. "Cole Jefferson's back, damn it." Luke looked sharply at Evelyn. The moment hung heavy in the air. Moon wasn't just alive, he was in danger, and this time, Evelyn wasn't willing to lose him. The ranger station erupted into motion the moment the young ranger delivered the news. Chairs scraped, radios crackled to life, boots thundered across the wooden floor. Outside, the snow thickened into heavy flakes that drifted downward like silent warnings. What had begun as a desperate quest to keep a promise was suddenly colliding with something far uglier: human greed. Evelyn felt it before anyone said a word. Moon was hurt. She didn't need proof, didn't need photos, didn't need the ranger's grim expression. The dread pressed into her chest like a tightening fist, and even Luke, standing behind her, sensed the shift in her breath. Chief Ranger Maria Ortiz pulled on her coat with quick, efficient movements. "Cole Jefferson," she muttered. "Every time we clear him out, he slithers right back in." She turned sharply to Daniel. "How long ago were those traps set?" "Fresh," the young ranger answered. "Maybe hours. And the blood, we think it was from something big." Daniel's voice lowered. "B19 uses that corridor in winter." The implication sat heavy in the air. Evelyn gripped her cane. "He's alive." Her voice quivered but did not break. If it was fatal, the rangers would have found more than blood. Maria didn't argue, but she didn't soften either. "Mrs. Carter, if he's injured, that makes him unpredictable. That makes this even more dangerous than it already was." "I don't care about danger," Evelyn said, her jaw tightening. "I care about a living creature who survived fire once already, only to be hunted now." Luke stepped closer to her. "Chief Ortiz, look. We're not asking to go out there with guns or trackers. But if he's hurt and wandering alone..." Maria held up a hand. "It's not a matter of want. We have procedures. Poachers are armed. The terrain is dangerous. And you," she looked at Evelyn pointedly, "are in no condition to hike 6 miles into deep woods." "I didn't say I needed to hike," Evelyn replied. "I said I needed to see him." Nina, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, stepped forward. Chief Ortiz. I know protocol matters, but this woman's connection to that bear isn't imaginary. I've filmed enough human wildlife stories to know when something's real. Maria raised an eyebrow. This isn't a YouTube special, Miss Brooks. No, Nina said steadily. But it might become evidence. Maria stared at her. Evidence of what? That this reserve is doing everything it can to protect its wildlife, Nina said without blinking, and that sometimes extraordinary circumstances require flexibility. Even Daniel seemed surprised by Nina's unexpected maturity. Evelyn didn't speak. She simply watched Maria, the way a nurse watches a patient deciding whether to live or die. Maria exhaled hard. All right, here's what I can allow. She pointed at Luke. You two stay here. She pointed to Nina. You too? Then she turned to Evelyn. You can ride with us as far as the monitoring cabin, but you will not go into the woods. Not until we assess the scene. Understood? Evelyn held her gaze. Understood. But Luke saw it, the quiet rebellion forming behind his grandmother's eyes. The sky grew darker as they drove deeper into the park, the forest closing in around them like a cathedral of snow and shadow. The SUV rattled violently on the icy trail, and every bump jarred Evelyn's bones. Still, she sat upright, scanning the tree line through the window as if she might see moon at any moment. Luke rode in back with her while Nina filmed discreet B-roll from the far seat. Maria and Daniel spoke in low tones in the front. Jefferson's too smart for snares alone, Daniel said. If he's out here, he's probably tracking B-19 specifically. Why him? Maria asked. There are easier targets. Because Ghostback is famous, Daniel replied. Rare. Old. A trophy a man like Jefferson could brag about for decades. Evelyn closed her eyes against the sting of anger. He survived hell once, she whispered. He shouldn't have to earn his life again. The SUV finally pulled into a narrow clearing where a small monitoring cabin waited. A lonely wooden box surrounded by tall pines bowing under fresh snow. The wind cut sharply here, colder, more direct, the kind of cold that made old wounds flare. Daniel helped Evelyn out of the truck. Stay close to the cabin, he said gently. It's heated and safe. Evelyn nodded, but she wasn't focused on the cold or the cabin. She stared at the snow-covered ground. Tracks, huge ones, fresh. Daniel kneeled, brushing snow away. Grizzly, he confirmed softly. Adult male. Weight, at least 700 pounds. Maria knelt beside him. Look at the drag in the stride. Left foreleg. Pain response. So he's definitely injured, Luke murmured. Evelyn's heart clenched. She recognized the spacing between the tracks, the weight distribution, the slight inward turn of the paws. It's him, she said. Maria didn't contradict her. The Rangers shouldered their rifles and prepared to move toward the northern ridge. When they were ready, Maria turned to Evelyn. This is where you stay. Evelyn nodded. I will. Luke didn't believe it. Nina didn't believe it. Even Daniel seemed doubtful. Maria led her team into the trees, footsteps crunching until the sound faded entirely, swallowed whole by the wilderness. Inside the cabin, the air was warm and thick with the smell of pine wood. Luke helped Evelyn sit near the window. Outside, snow drifted lazily beneath the dimming afternoon light. You okay? Luke asked. I'm here, she said. That's enough. Nina reviewed her footage quietly, occasionally glancing toward the door. Minutes passed, then an hour. The storm grew harder, tapping at the windows. Something pressed against the edges of the silence. A presence. Evelyn felt it before she saw it. A shift in the air. A heaviness settling into the world outside. She leaned forward in her chair. Luke, she whispered. Look. Outside, beyond the illuminated frost on the glass, stood a shadow. Huge. Silent. Watching. Nina gasped softly, choking back the sound with both hands over her mouth. The figure moved closer, until the moonlight revealed a face. Moon, older, scarred, enormous, but undeniably him. His breath fogged the air in long, uneven bursts. Snow clung to his fur. His eyes, amber and weary, flicked from the cabin door, to the window, to Evelyn's face. His left shoulder was smeared with dried blood. He had come here. He had followed their scent. He had come to find the one thing he remembered. Evelyn's breath trembled. "Oh, darling," she whispered, eyes brimming with tears. "You're hurt." Moon stepped closer. His massive paw prints sank deep into the snow. He sniffed at the air, the tip of his nose lifting toward the window as if confirming something long lost. Luke gripped Evelyn's arm. "Grandma, don't move." But she placed her hand on the glass anyway, fingers trembling. Moon leaned his head slightly, eyes narrowing with a familiarity that defied reason. The stillness was sacred, until a distant echo shattered it. Gunfire. One sharp shot. Far away, but close enough. Moon flinched, snapping his head toward the trees. "He's being hunted," Evelyn whispered. Luke swore under his breath. "We need to call the Rangers." "No," she said, standing shakily. "We need to go to him." "You can't. Grandma, he came here for a reason," she insisted. "He's hurt and he's afraid. I feel it." And though Luke wanted to argue, wanted to block the door, wanted to protect her from the madness of this moment, he saw the truth in her eyes. Moon wasn't running from them. He was running to her. Through the window, the bear lifted his head and let out a low, aching rumble that vibrated the cabin's walls. A call, a memory, a plea. Evelyn pressed her hand harder to the glass. "I'm coming," she whispered. And outside, in the falling snow, Moon turned and limped toward the darkest part of the forest, waiting for her. The storm thickened through the night, swallowing the forest in a velvet darkness broken only by the faint reflection of moonlight off the snow. Inside the monitoring cabin, Evelyn could no longer sit still. Moon's appearance, his eyes, his wound, his silent plea, had electrified something in her bones that age had not managed to dull. She stood by the door, leaning heavily on her cane. Luke hovered close, torn between fear for her safety and awe at what they had witnessed. "Grandma, don't even think about stepping outside," he whispered. "I already thought about it," she said, fastening the top button of her coat. And decided. Nina looked up from her camera. "We should wait for Maria. We don't know where the hunters are." Evelyn tapped her cane once on the floor, steady, controlled. "Moon is wounded. Wounded animals don't move far. He came here because he knows me, because he needs help. I'm not letting him wander around bleeding while those men stalk the forest." Luke rubbed a hand over his face. "You're 81. You can't—" "I'm 81, she said sharply, "and that means I don't have the luxury of waiting." Before Luke could answer, a sharp crash echoed outside, something large snapping through branches. All three froze. Evelyn moved first. She opened the door. Cold wind slapped her face, and for a moment she closed her eyes, letting it wake every cell inside her. Snowflakes settled on her scarf like tiny crystals. She stepped outside, and the night swallowed her breath. "Moon?" she called softly. The forest didn't answer, but the tracks did, huge, heavy, and fresh, leading away from the cabin toward a shadowed rise of trees. Evelyn took one step. Luke rushed beside her. "If you're going, I'm going too, but we're doing this smart." Nina grabbed her pack and recorded. Evelyn didn't argue. She simply nodded once, and the three of them stepped off the porch into the deep snow. The trail Moon left behind was unmistakable, oversized paws sinking inches deep, a slight drag on the left side where the wound hampered him. Silence pressed around them, a heavy, suffocating blanket broken only by the crunch of their boots and the distant low howl of the wind. Luke stayed close to Evelyn, checking her breathing every few minutes. She hated being monitored, but she tolerated it. She knew he was scared. Truth be told, she was scared too, not of Moon, but of what they might find. Blood dotted the snow as they climbed toward dense fir trees. "He's losing more than earlier," Nina whispered. Evelyn stopped, kneeling with difficulty to brush the snow carefully around one of the prints. Her fingers hovered over the dried blood. "It's not too much," she murmured, more to herself than to the others. "He's strong. He can hold on." Luke helped her stand. "We should turn back soon." A gunshot ripped through the darkness. Close, too close. The three ducked instinctively. Nina covered her camera with her jacket. Luke pulled Evelyn against a fallen log, shielding her with his own body. "That wasn't a warning shot," Luke whispered. "Someone's hunting." Evelyn's voice was a thin whisper. "Moon." They stayed crouched, listening. The forest held its breath. Then, another sound. Not a gunshot. Something lower. Pained. A groan masked by the wind, but unmistakably from a massive animal. Evelyn turned her head toward the noise. "He's down." Before Luke could stop her, she pushed up from the snow and began walking again, faster than he'd ever seen her move in the cold. Luke hesitated only a second before sprinting after her. Nina followed, clutching her camera, breath forming frantic clouds. They crested a small ridge and froze. Below them, in a narrow clearing shaped by fallen trees, a man in a snow camo jacket crouched beside a blood trail, adjusting the scope on a large rifle. His face was half shadowed by the hood, but his voice drifted upward as he muttered to himself, "Cole Jefferson." Evelyn didn't know his name, but she knew him instantly by the way he moved, casual, entitled, as if he owned whatever he set his sights on. He stepped forward, scanning the trees. "Come on, big boy," he said. "Don't make me chase you all night." Luke leaned close to Evelyn's ear. "Grandma, we have to go back, right now." But Evelyn was staring past the hunter. At the trees behind him, a familiar shadow slumped against a fallen trunk. Moon, alive but barely. His massive body heaved with shallow breaths. Blood stained his fur, his head lifted weakly, his eyes searching the ridge until he found her. Recognition flashed in them like a distant star flickering to life. The world broke open in Evelyn's chest. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "Hold on." Jefferson turned toward the sound the moment she spoke. "Hey," he barked. "Who's there?" Luke cursed under his breath and pulled Evelyn back behind the ridge as the hunter raised his rifle, scanning upward. Nina whispered, "He'll shoot anything that moves." Evelyn grabbed Luke's sleeve. "You two go back. Get Maria. Bring her here." "And leave you here with a hunter and a wounded bear?" Luke hissed. "Are you out of your mind?" "Yes," she said firmly, "because I know him, and he knows me. Moon won't hurt me, but if I leave now, that man will kill him." Luke clenched his jaw. "You can't just—" She drew in a slow breath. "I can, and I have to." Her hand trembled slightly as she touched Luke's face, the same way she did when he was small and afraid. "Please, sweetheart, I need you to trust me, just this once." Luke's resistance faltered, not because her plan made sense, but because the conviction in her eyes was the same he had seen when she'd spoken of the fire, the same conviction that had saved Moon then. He swallowed hard. "Nina, we go, now." Nina nodded, wide-eyed but focused. "We'll get the Rangers. Fast." They slipped, back through the trees, snow muffling their steps until their shapes melted into the white. Evelyn waited until the last sound of their movement faded. She gripped her cane, inhaled deeply, and stepped over the ridge into the clearing. The crunch of her boots snapped Jefferson's head up. He swung the rifle toward her. "Ma'am, you can't be out here. This is restricted." "I'm here for him," she said, her voice calm and steady, pointing her cane toward Moon. Jefferson snorted. "Lady, that's a 700-pound grizzly. He'll kill you before he knows what you are." "No," she said. "You will." He blinked, caught off guard by the certainty in her tone. Evelyn walked past him toward Moon. Snowflakes drifted through the air, settling on her coat, her scarf, her thinning hair. Her breath came in slow clouds. Each step was deliberate, careful, but unstoppable. Moon lifted his head more fully when she approached. A low rumble vibrated through his chest. Not aggression, but relief. Jefferson cursed under his breath. "Are you insane? Get back!" Evelyn ignored him. She reached Moon's side, lowering herself onto the snow with a quiet grunt. His fur was warm, his breath warm, his eyes... Oh, those eyes, dimmed by pain but still holding the spark she remembered. She placed a gentle hand on his neck, right where the crescent fur shone beneath the blood. Her thumb brushed the edge of the old scar. "You came to me," she whispered. "Now let me keep my promise." Moon breathed out, a low rumbling sigh that trembled the ground beneath her. Jefferson raised his rifle again, stepping closer. "Lady, move!" Evelyn looked over her shoulder, eyes fierce. "If you shoot," she said quietly, "you'll hit me first." Before Jefferson could reply, the forest exploded behind him. Boots pounding, voices shouting. Maria's voice cutting through the storm like a blade. "Drop the weapon!" Jefferson spun too quickly. Rangers swarmed him in seconds, tackling him to the snow, wrenching the rifle from his grip. He screamed curses until someone pinned his face into the cold earth. Maria ran toward Evelyn, slipping slightly on the ice. "Mrs. Carter, are you hurt?" Evelyn shook her head. "He is." Maria saw the wound and swore softly. "We need medical supplies." "Then get them," Evelyn said. "I'll keep him calm until you return." Maria hesitated just long enough to grasp the impossible truth unfolding before her. Moon wasn't lunging. Moon wasn't roaring. Moon wasn't attacking. Moon was leaning into the touch of an old woman he hadn't seen in 24 years. Maria barked orders. Rangers sprinted back toward the trail, and Evelyn stayed there, one hand on Moon's neck, one hand gripping her cane, whispering softly to the creature she had saved once before. "Stay with me," she murmured. "I'm not done yet." Moon closed his eyes and trusted her. Again, dawn crept across the treetops in thin strokes of silver, brushing the snow-covered ground with just enough light to reveal the truth of the clearing. Moon wasn't just wounded. He was fading. His breaths came shallow and rough, each one a gravelly pull that scraped the cold air. Evelyn sat beside him, one hand buried in the thick fur along his neck, the other gripping her cane as if rooting herself to the earth. Maria returned first, breathless, carrying a veterinary field pack across her chest. 2 rangers followed, hauling additional supplies: gauze, antiseptic spray, sutures, and a tranquilizer kit in case everything went wrong. But Evelyn would not let that happen. When Maria approached, Moon growled, a deep, warning vibration, but Evelyn pressed her palm gently to his shoulder. "It's all right," she whispered. "She's here to help." Miraculously, the growl eased into a rumbling breath. Maria crouched several feet away, murmuring, "I've never seen anything like this." "You won't again," Evelyn answered softly. "Not in your lifetime." Luke and Nina arrived moments later, covered in frost and fear. Luke nearly fell beside Evelyn, his voice tight. "Grandma, are you okay? You shouldn't..." She cut him off with a small, tired smile. "I told you, he remembers me." Nina stood behind Luke, camera lowered for once, unable to speak. Seeing Moon, massive, wounded, yet calm under the touch of an elderly woman, was something even her lens couldn't capture properly. It was something you felt deeper than sight. Maria opened the kit, hands steady but eyes sharp. "Mrs. Carter, I'll need to clean the wound. He might react. You have to be ready to move." Evelyn shook her head. "I'm not moving unless he makes me. Do what you need." Moon's wound was ugly, deeper than it first appeared. Blood matted the fur across his ribs, dried in dark streaks. The hunter's bullet had grazed but torn a long, vicious cut that now looked angry and infected. Maria sprayed antiseptic, and Moon tensed violently. Snow shifted under his claws as he lifted his massive head with a guttural rumble. Several rangers raised their tranquilizer guns instinctively. "Stop," Evelyn said sharply. The rangers froze. Moon's golden eyes locked onto Evelyn's face. Not Maria, not the rangers. Evelyn. She leaned forward, placing both hands on his head, her voice low and melodic, the same voice she used decades ago, the one that had soothed the little cub whose life hung on a thread. "You're safe," she murmured. "I know it burns. I know. But stay with me. I've got you. I'm right here." Slowly, Moon's body relaxed. Not fully, but enough for Maria to work. The antiseptic hissed against the wound, steam rising in the freezing air. Moon twitched, panting, but he stayed still. Evelyn kept one hand on him the entire time, whispering memories only they shared. The cardboard box he had slept in, the burn mark on her arm from the incubator lamp he used to swat at, the way he used to nudge her pockets looking for treats. Luke watched, wide-eyed, understanding something for the first time. "This isn't just recognition," he whispered to Nina. "This is trust." Nina nodded, voice breaking. "This is a relationship." Maria finished cleaning the wound and prepared a field bandage. "We'll need to give him antibiotics. It'll sting like hell." "He'll handle it," Evelyn said with quiet certainty. Maria injected the medication into the thick muscle along Moon's shoulder. He jolted, teeth bared, snow scattering beneath his claws. Evelyn didn't flinch. She lifted her cane, holding it horizontally, exactly the way she had done when Moon was small and fiery, and whispered, "Easy, Moon, easy." It was a gesture so familiar, so deeply embedded in memory, that it triggered something inside the wounded bear. His breathing slowed, his head lowered, his eyes softened. Maria wrapped the bandage quickly. "That's all I can do out here. If infection spreads, we'll need to sedate him and treat him at the research facility." Evelyn stroked Moon's cheek. "He won't let you do that." Maria hesitated. "Then we pray this is enough." The forest seemed to exhale all at once, releasing its tension. But the danger wasn't past. Not yet. 2 rangers dragged Jefferson, the hunter, up the ridge. His hands were bound, his face smeared with snow and anger. Maria's jaw clenched. "We'll get him to the station and turn him over to the authorities." Jefferson spat onto the ground. "You think locking me up changes anything? Bears die every day. You can't protect them all." Luke stepped forward, fury shaking his voice. "You nearly killed a helpless animal." Jefferson sneered. "That helpless animal would rip you apart like tissue paper." Evelyn rose slowly from Moon's side, leaning on her cane, her voice icy calm. "He had more mercy in him than you ever will." Jefferson laughed. "Mercy? He's a wild killer." Evelyn's chin lifted. "He's alive because I taught him to trust, and today he trusted me more than he feared you. That's something you'll never understand." Jefferson opened his mouth to retort, but Moon suddenly pushed himself onto his feet, towering above everyone. Even wounded, he was immense, thunderous in presence. He turned his head toward Jefferson, eyes sharp and ancient. Jefferson stumbled backward, paling. "Keep him away from me." Moon didn't lunge. He didn't growl. He simply stepped forward, one deliberate, echoing movement until he stood between Evelyn and the man who tried to kill him. A shield. A promise returned. Two rangers tightened their grip on Jefferson's arms and dragged him quickly away, tripping over their own boots in their hurry. The moment Jefferson vanished into the trees, Moon exhaled and slowly lowered himself beside Evelyn again, exhausted. Maria swallowed hard. I don't know how to explain that behavior scientifically. You don't have to, Evelyn said. Some things aren't meant to be explained. They prepared a makeshift sled to help transport Moon closer to the cabin, where he could rest safely through the night. The rangers stepped back, expecting to coax him onto it using poles and distance. Instead, Moon lifted his head, looked at Evelyn, and, painfully, heavily, stood. He followed her, step by careful step. Maria whispered, "He's letting you lead him." Evelyn smiled gently. He always did. By the time they reached the cabin, twilight washed the world in lavender. Moon settled beside the porch, curling himself in a protective arc around the steps, as if standing guard over Evelyn. Luke helped Evelyn into a chair, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "You scared 10 years off my life," he muttered. She squeezed his hand. "You'll get them back." Watching Moon heal, Nina filmed quietly from the doorway, tears slipping down her cheeks. Not for the footage, but for the moment. Maria knelt beside Moon one last time. "We'll check him first thing in the morning, but truthfully, I've never seen an animal fight this hard to stay alive." "He remembers why," Evelyn whispered. Moon shifted, releasing a low, trembling purr, deep as thunder, soft as gratitude. Luke brushed snow from Evelyn's shoulder. "Grandma, what happens now?" Evelyn gazed out at the darkening forest, where shadows stretched like open paths. "Now," she said softly, "now everything changes." The next morning dawned soft and pale, the kind of winter light that seemed to drift into existence rather than rise. Snowflakes floated lazily through the crisp air, settling across the cabin porch where Evelyn sat bundled in 2 blankets, her cane resting beside her. Moon lay only a few feet away, stretched along the snow-packed clearing like a great guardian carved from living stone. His breathing was stronger today, still labored, but deeper, steadier, touched by recovery rather than desperation. Luke brewed tea inside while Nina quietly organized the footage she'd shot, though she paused every few minutes just to stare through the frost-lined window at the impossible sight outside. Maria arrived with 2 rangers carrying fresh antibiotics and supplies. The cabin door creaked as she stepped out onto the porch. "Morning, Mrs. Carter. How's our patient?" Evelyn's eyes softened. "Sleeping, healing, and still keeping watch over me." Moon stirred as Maria approached, but he didn't rise. His eyes opened, golden, aware, old, and when he saw Evelyn sitting calm beside him, he lowered his head again with a huff of trust. Maria exhaled in wonder. "I'll never get used to that." "You're not meant to," Evelyn replied. "Some bonds, they're one of a kind." Maria knelt beside Moon to inspect the bandage. It needed changing, but there was no new bleeding. Infection hadn't spread. His body was fighting back, against odds, against age, against the wound that could have ended him. Evelyn reached out, touching the fur at his neck. "You're stronger than anyone knows," she whispered. "But I've always known." Luke stepped onto the porch, holding a mug of tea. "Grandma, drink something warm. You didn't sleep much." "I slept enough," she said, taking the cup. "Moon needed me awake." Luke hesitated. "And when he doesn't need you awake anymore?" Evelyn didn't answer at first, but instead, she looked out toward the horizon, toward the rolling blankets of untouched snow, the serrated silhouettes of the distant peaks, the slow awakening of a day that felt heavier than usual. Her gaze softened with something deeper than thought. "Luke," she said finally, "some promises take years to keep, and some take years to understand." That afternoon, Maria summoned Evelyn, Luke, and Nina to the research center. The Rangers had finished their initial reports, confirming Jefferson was responsible for a larger poaching network. His capture had triggered an entire investigation already spreading through the region. Inside Maria's office, maps and notes covered the table. She cleared a small space and set a folder down. "This," she said carefully, "is something I want you to consider." Evelyn lifted her eyes. "What sort of something?" Maria folded her hands, choosing her words. "The wilderness in this region is changing. More development, more illegal hunting. Animals like Moon. They need advocates who understand them in a deeper way. People who've earned their trust." Nina leaned forward. "You're saying Evelyn should stay?" Maria nodded. "Not permanently, but perhaps for seasons. As a consultant, as a caretaker for the protected animals who remember her. As someone who sees things the rest of us miss." Luke's eyebrows shot up. "Grandma living here, in Alaska, in winter." Evelyn didn't smile. She just breathed, slow, steady, like someone absorbing a truth she had already sensed coming. Maria continued, "We'd prepare a cabin for you, with heat, better communication, a small team nearby. You'd be safe. And Moon, well, he's made it clear he wants you close." Evelyn closed the folder gently. "I would like that," she said, "for as long as my body lets me." Luke was quiet for several seconds, wrestling with worry and acceptance. Finally, he sighed. "If this is what makes you happy, then I'll help you." Evelyn squeezed his hand. "Thank you, sweetheart," Nina grinned. "And I'll be here every season filming the greatest wildlife story of the century." Maria chuckled. "You might, because I think this is just the beginning." Over the next 2 weeks, an observation cabin was built a quarter-mile from the main station. Simple, sturdy, designed for winter survival. The porch faced the valley moon, favored. Ranger patrols increased. Barriers were upgraded. Cameras were placed to monitor surrounding wildlife. Moon recovered slowly but steadily. Some days he stayed near Evelyn's temporary cabin. Other days he patrolled farther than Maria expected, though he always returned by nightfall, circling the cabin before settling into his favorite place, right beside the steps. As days passed, Evelyn's cheeks grew pinker, her energy lighter. She walked more. She laughed more. She existed in a way Luke had not seen in years, as if the place had peeled back decades of loneliness and revealed the woman she had always been beneath time's erosion. "Moon saved me as much as I saved him," she said one evening, rocking gently in a porch chair while he dozed a few yards away. "We finish what we start, that's the promise." Luke sat beside her. "You're stronger here." "I'm myself here," she corrected gently. Winter deepened and the sky filled with long stretches of violet dusk. On Evelyn's last evening before returning to Anchorage for a scheduled checkup, a requirement Maria insisted on, Moon approached the porch with a slow, purposeful stride. He stepped onto the first wooden plank, then the second, until his massive head was within Evelyn's reach. His breath steamed in the cold. His eyes, flecked with gold and memory, settled on her. Evelyn raised her trembling hand and touched his forehead, right where the crescent-shaped pattern cascaded through his fur. "You remember everything," she whispered. "And so do I." Moon leaned closer, and then, very gently, he dragged the side of his face along her arm, a bear's gesture of affection, a marking of trust, a goodbye, and a promise wrapped into one. Evelyn pressed her forehead to his for the briefest second. "Heal, live, I'll be back." Moon rumbled a soft, thunder-deep purr, something no wilderness manual could explain. Luke stood on the porch, watching, no longer afraid. Nina recorded from a respectful distance, tears shining in her eyes. Maria whispered from behind them, "I've never seen anything more beautiful." Evelyn returned to Alaska 3 more winters. Each season, Moon greeted her as if no time had passed. Older, slower, but still magnificent. She documented his behavior, helped Maria's team, and trained new rangers in reading subtle animal cues only she could see. And when her health finally shifted, quietly, steadily, unavoidably, she chose to return home to Oregon, to a cottage Luke had renovated so she could live her final years surrounded by family. She passed in her sleep at 84, a gentle peace on her face, her hand resting on a framed photograph of Moon taken the previous winter. The rangers radioed Maria 3 days later. Moon had been found in a clearing near the observation cabin, lying peacefully, facing the porch, as if waiting for someone who would not be returning this time. He died that night, old, dignified, unafraid. Maria stood over him in the snow, tears warming her cheeks despite the cold. "He kept his promise," she whispered, "all the way to the end." Luke flew to Alaska with Evelyn's ashes. They buried part of them beside Moon in the quiet heart of the forest where 2 lives had intertwined against every law of nature. Rangers said the wind changed that night, soft, warm, carrying a hush that felt like gratitude, as if somewhere, in a place without fear or time or species barriers, an old woman and a great bear walked side by side through endless trees, keeping each other company the way they were always meant to.